Energy Boutique with your energy and ascension forecast for Sunday, August 10th to Saturday, August 16th. So last week was quite the doozy. We had a lot of energy shifting that we still really haven't adjusted to. Of course, Mars, he sat at that 29 critical crisis karmic degree in that Virgo energy that definitely brought out the anger and frustration, the irritability, the digestive issues, if you will, prior to him shifting into Libra energy that, of course, catapulted us into some tension aspects, specifically with Saturn and Neptune, who of course are both retrograde in Aries energy that Mars rules over. We are definitely not free and clear of that particular tension as of yet. We are actually sitting in the midst of it as I come to you live here Friday evening. And of course, as we're sitting, watching this tension build, watching these scales, if you will, teeter-totter back and forth, showing us where it is that, again, we want to take action, we want to make moves, where it is that we can't, where it is that relationship dynamics are coming to a head, where it is that we're losing sight of particular goals, visions, and dreams. All of this is building towards the breakdown energy that we are currently sitting at, waiting for the breakthrough energy that is coming with the full moon in Aquarius that is just hours away. Of course, it will be popping off at 3:56 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here early Saturday morning, the 9th. And so again, we are kind of in this intensity, watching it build, watching it just aggravate the absolute shit out of all of us. And of course, the breakthrough energy still a couple of days away. We have been wrapping up the last full week of Mercury's retrograde. And although that's a beautiful thing, we are still very much sitting in it. And the days that kind of surround when Mercury stations direct, which will be on the 11th, we are in the ultimate level of mental exhaustion, mental confusion. And as we build to this full moon in Aquarius that rules over the highest realm of our intellect, opening up our crown, Mercury is definitely doing a number on the lower level of our intellect that, essentially speaking, is being rewritten, recoded based off of our heart space. This past week, we started to feel these energies build, more specifically due to a very, very interesting alignment that is taking place under this full moon in Aquarius. We have two kite formations taking place, building off of a grand air trine, and some very important astrology that is popping off that, mind you, has nothing to do with this fake-ass Lion's Gate. If you want to kind of dive into my thoughts, my ideas around this fake-ass Lion's Gate, I do welcome you to pop over to Patreon, kind of see what I have to say about it over there. But there's actually some legit astrology going on. There's actually very potent alignments taking place that is probably going to get backburnered due to this new age spiritual floof around this so-called Lion's Gate portal. So we have a lot of significant energies that are just starting to anchor in that will be carrying us into this next week. And of course, the week coming at us, Mercury's going to go direct on the 11th. We have a major event popping off between Saturn and Uranus taking place on the 11th, followed by Venus and Jupiter's annual conjunction taking place on the 12th. And that applied pressure is already starting to build. And technically speaking, it's the only optimistic energy that we have kind of pulling us out of what could be a very dark pit for many of us if we're not careful. This week, we are going to be settling into the breakthrough energy that is coming post full moon in Aquarius. And of course, we're going to be building towards the last quarter moon of this Leo lunar phase. That last quarter moon is popping off in Taurus energy on the 16th. So we definitely have a lot of energies that are coming at us that probably are going to destabilize us before we're going to feel grounded enough to kind of sort through the information, the epiphanies that will be popping off over the course of this next week. But we still have to realize that, again, right now we're in the breakdown phase of this particular lunar cycle. The breakthrough energy is going to bring in revelations and epiphanies that are going to fuel a major pivot point, major change in our path and our direction. But the clarity doesn't come at the apex of the full moon in Aquarius. We are going to need a couple of days to kind of adjust to that. And the interesting part about this week is that just when we receive that insight and clarity, just when we feel like we have a little bit more information to be working with, it's going to come in fast and it's going to leave just as quick. We're going to have genius to dumbass moments back to back. And it's going to be very important for us to kind of capture, writing down voice clips, whatever the case may be, whenever those revelations, those epiphanies actually hit. So we have a lot of energy this week. It has been very, very monumental as far as this breakdown phase goes. Again, just a reminder, we are in the year of 9. 9 is about endings and closures. We have all of these heavy hitting planets in brand new energies that we're still adjusting to. And many of those heavy hitting planets are actually retrograde. So there's an internalized restructuring going on, thus why we're not seeing the kind of progress and productivity in our external realm that we were hoping to see at this particular point in the calendar. So we have a lot to sort through this week, and because of the energies popping off, of course, we are going to have major ascension symptoms, or should I call it radiation poisoning responses, to all of these jacked up energies that are popping off in the cosmos. And so before we dive into it, just wanted to thank you so much, first of all, for being here. Second of all, to those of you that have jumped over to subscribe to the Full Forecast channel. Glad to see that that is kind of slowly but surely building. That means that there's an interest in actually doing the work and actually staying ahead of the game. And of course, I love that for all of us. Special mention, I do have a Virgo season special put out on my website. If you want a one-on-one reading about what Virgo season has in store, I made it a special because, of course, Virgo season is catapulting us into eclipse season. And I just have this eerie feeling that people are going to lose their minds. People are going to lose their shit. And in Virgo season, typically a season that it provides us with stability, provides us with the time to kind of get our shit together, to reorganize, rebuild our physical realms. We're not going to have that kind of power and control this time around. And so because of that, I started early. There are limited spots. So if you want to jump over to my website, reserve one of those spots, we can definitely dive into your chart and see how we can use the absolute cray-cray energy of eclipse season and Saturn retrograding back into Pisces while Uranus retrogrades through Gemini. That's coming at us through Virgo season as well. So if we want to figure out how to use that energy to the best of our ability, I would definitely recommend snagging a spot. So that is the only promo that you're going to hear me talk about. Quite honestly, I absolutely hate trying to promo and market some of these services, but if I don't talk about it, then you don't know about it. And if you don't know about it, you can't help yourself. So that is my energy. That is my effort as far as marketing and promotion goes. I want to jump into the Ascension symptoms, but before I do, I also want to thank those of you that have extended the love, the support, the healing energies, specifically based off of last week. I was in a hard space, and I know this past week has been very hard on a lot of people. It took me about 3 days to kind of snap out of that particular energy, and although I'm feeling much better in comparison to how I was feeling last Friday, it's still not that great. I know that, the universe is definitely kind of shaking us down, if you will. And because of that, it's been really hard on the head and hard on the heart and hard on the physical body. And hopefully this week it won't be as tough, but I just wanted to thank those of you that continued to reach out throughout the week to check on me, to see how I was doing. Definitely got knocked off of my, knocked off of everything, knocked off my feet, knocked off my head, everything here last week. And again, it has gotten increasingly better, but still not tickety-boo. I know many people have reached out, not only, providing love and support and healing energies throughout the course of this last week to me, but also to share the struggles that they're going through. And when I say to you that the general consensus is that we're all getting our ass kicked, please understand that you are definitely not alone. We are all going through it. So let's see what this week has in store. Hopefully it is better, but considering the fact that the upper chakras are definitely going to be on tap, on lock, specifically because of this full moon in Aquarius. That is no ordinary full moon. It, again, has 2 kite formations, and in astrology, kite formations are a karmic checkpoint of sorts. We have a grand air trine that those kites are being formulated off of. And that means that there's a lot of air, a lot of electricity, a lot of crown activations that will be taking place. And we know that when we connect to the collective, when we connect to the cosmos, that there's an overwhelming pressure that definitely takes over the headspace. So of course, we're going to get a blast with this Aquarius full moon. We are going to get another blast with the Saturn and Uranus sextile. That is the second out of three particular aspects that these guys are making. If you want a little bit more depth and detail on that, you can check out the August energy overview. I did talk about it as a special feature because it is a very special kind of energy. And because it is kind of compounded on when Mercury directs, again, we're going to have a lot of pressure really building up in the highest realm of intelligence, the lowest realm of intelligence. We're trying to break down that partition, that wall between the two, so to speak. And it is definitely going to have a major impact, major influence on how our head responds. So with crown activations, with third eye activations, of course, we can expect headaches, we can expect dizziness, but there's this like weird buzz, okay? It's almost as if we've been sitting next to a very loud speaker at a concert for a long time, and then we remove ourselves, but yet we can still feel the vibration coursing through our body. And, you know, that isn't the greatest sensation. It could definitely be worse, but it's very disorienting. And it is going to kind of, I'm going to say, trigger a lot of sinus pressure, sinus congestion as well. Whether your nose is running or your nose is dry as F, there is a particular switch in the mucosa here this week. And with all the air energy and lacking all of the earth energy, I don't know if you've taken a look at the elemental energy profile that I post on the daily forecast, but we are all out of earth energy. We are not grounded at all. We are not kind of, functioning well in the physical body at all. Our external realms aren't working as well as we would like, and that is the lack of earth. And, air energy is drying everything out, and it's making our head spin, and it's overwhelming our head space. And there is a mental and emotional overload that we are currently experiencing that, we just want it to come to an end so that we can kind of feel grounded and feel a little bit clearer on what it is that we need to do. And hopefully we are going to get those particular insights over the course of this week. But I would say with the upper chakras being activated, we are going to feel like our head is kind of disconnected from our body. It's going to be very hard to kind of feel grounded and present in the physical form. I think that towards the end of the week, when the moon shifts into Taurus energy and we kind of start building towards that last quarter moon in Taurus, that's when we're going to be catapulted back into the physical vessel, and that's going to bring some aches and pains all within itself. So when the upper chakras are being triggered, activated, and overwhelmed, and we have that disconnection, that detachment to the physical form, and then all of a sudden, all of that energy gets drawn back into the physical body, it feels like there's too much energy in our physical form and we're kind of busting at the seams. And that is when we kind of feel the pressure building in our joints, the rigidity in all of the joints popping and cracking and doing its thing. But I think that the most pressure that we're going to be feeling when that energy jolts back into the physical body is our hips. Now, that hip pressure is due to, again, we're in a state of paralysis. We're kind of standing still. We want to move on and move forward, but the information that is about to be presented to us here this week is going to present us with a particular pivot point. And that pivot point, if you're rigid in your movements, is going to be very hard to be flexible and adapt to. And, considering the fact that the ego programming is stuck very much in our root chakra, which is at hip level, it just very much feels like there's going to be a trigger and activation from the hips down. And that's going to, of course, not feel good, but there is a restructuring going on in our chakras, therefore in our physical realm. The energy is shifting here this week. And because of that, our physical body is going to be lagging on kind of being flexible and adaptable enough to pivot with the energies. So where the higher realms of intelligence are being activated, first with the full moon in Aquarius, second with the grand air trine taking place, third with Saturn and Uranus's energy popping off here this week. We also have to consider the fact that Jupiter and Venus will be coming together for their annual conjunction. It's taking place in Cancer energy this time around. And so that Cancer energy has us very anchored into the past, realizing the emotional and mental baggage in which we're carrying into the present moment. And that particular baggage is what we have to learn to kind of unpack, release, detach from in order to actually end up in the futuristic projection that these upper chakra activations are going to kind of show us where it is that we desire to be. The Aquarius energy is very futuristically focused, while that Cancer energy is very connected to the past. And what that brings is a disconnection, a disassociation, if you will, from the present moment. We're kind of being tug of war, if you will, between where it is that we once were and where it is that we thought we would be versus where it is now that we would like to see ourselves end up. But there's no earth energy, so we're not grounded in the present moment. We're not connected to reality at all. These pop-offs, these downloads, these revelations, these epiphanies, they're going to come in hot, and it's going to hurt the head. It's going to have a lot of pressure. And just as we feel like we are receiving, genius and brilliant type of downloads, like I said, they come in hot and they leave just as fast. We literally can go from feeling like we are figuring everything out to not having a sweet Jesus clue what it is we just realized. And that back and forth between, great intelligence and dumbassery is really going to put a confusing type of twist on our mood and on our attitude. And so many of us are going to get stuck in very, I'm going to call them looping thoughts or looping narratives or spinning thoughts, if you will. It's like we can't get past a particular line in the sand that we essentially have drawn for ourselves. And where Venus and Jupiter, and mind you, Venus and Jupiter's conjunction is a positive thing, but in Cancer energy, it's revelations out of reviewing the past. Jupiter is the planet of growth and expansion. But it's by realizing the tough love life lessons that we had to go through and plucking out those silver linings in order to integrate that information into the present moment, which is hard to do with no freaking earth energy, which means that we're going to be bouncing around all over the place. And where the higher chakras with this Uranian Aquarius energy, even the Gemini energy that Uranus is in, it is the lower level of the intellect. But again, we're trying to break down that partition, that wall between the higher realms of intelligence and the lower realms of intelligence. It just feels like we're being pulled apart in two different paths, two different directions, and our thoughts are spinning because of it. There is a particular revelation coming out of these memories, these, let's call them flashes, that may actually be stemming out of this particular incarnation, but definitely could be coming from previous incarnations as well. There's like this bleed of forgetfulness, but yet a flash of a memory that we haven't thought of in 20 years. Or maybe you are in a situation where you hear music that you haven't heard in a long time, and suddenly you're projected back into that moment, and then the flood of emotions come in. This is the universe's attempt of trying to release us from some of the emotional weight that we don't even know that we're carrying. And when we kind of get stuck in particular looping thoughts, or those memories flash and then suddenly we can't seem to get out of them, it does kind of feel like we are digging ourselves a dark hole, a dark pit that we just can't seem to get out of. And because the Cancer energy that is being activated with Venus and Jupiter's conjunction here this week, yes, it's supposed to be a good thing. And yes, there are going to be good things that come out of it, good revelations, good heart activations, everything of the sort. But again, we have to understand that Cancer energy holds the memories not only of our own experiences, but of our lineage. And, we're all here, the black sheep of the families, if you will, the link in the chain that we decide that we are going to be breaking for our lineage. We have to remember the pain, the trauma, the grief, the betrayal, the everything that is stored in our DNA from previous incarnations. Again, whether we experienced or our ancestors have experienced, that all needs to come flooding back in order for us to process it, alchemize it in a way that, again, releases it not only from our physical body and from our current incarnation, but releases it from our lineage, which is, not a soft, gentle experience. And so with all of these activations taking place here this week, it is going to feel very disorienting and, being forgetful with things that are very important in this incarnation, but being able to remember things that you technically shouldn't remember, period. That's a little bit of a kerfuffle going on just in the revamp of the memory storage banks. If we are a computer system. So if you consider the fact that we're going through a defragging phase, and then after the defragging phase takes place, that we have to kind of go through all of our files and kind of refresh ourselves on the memories that are worth keeping and the memories that are not. This is, again, just kind of recalibrating the energy that we are going to be taking in to this next season and cycle. So it goes without saying, although I'm going to say it, goes without saying that there's going to be some major heart activations this week. And a lot of those heart activations are going to be stemming from repressed emotions coming up to the surface, specifically with all of these, Cancer activations between Venus and Jupiter. And Jupiter tends to magnify whatever it is that we're thinking, whatever it is that we're feeling, and we're going to be feeling a lot. Overwhelming amounts of feelings coming at us here this week. And because of that, heart activations can manifest in a lot of different ways, but I actually think that many of us are going to either feel like our heart is beating out of our chest or that it took on a little bit of an irregular heartbeat. Something is off. Something is going through a realignment, and we have to realize where the timing is off in our system in order to get it back into alignment with the rest of our systems. And speaking of systems, our nervous system is definitely going to be jacked up. Specifically because, of course, Aquarius energy, Uranian energy definitely zaps that central nervous system. But when we go through emotional activations, whether it's memories flooding in or emotions flooding in, it does tend to kind of, heighten the senses, if you will. And the nervous system flare-ups, the nervous system activations aren't fun. It could be tremors, it could be sciatica, it could just be, just feeling overly anxious or overwhelmed in some state of being. Either way, emotional and mental overwhelm is on the list. Like there's no getting away from that. Especially seeing, and let me just throw this in here, the full moon in Aquarius pops off at 3:56 a.m. Eastern Standard Time early on the 9th, immediately goes void, of course, and then catapults us into Pisces energy the very next day. And so, we have all of these revelations, all of this energy, electricity coursing through our bodies. And then what happens? We dive into the emotional ocean and Pisces energy to wrap things up, to bring an ending, a closure, a karmic reconciliation, if you will, to a lot of the things that get triggered and activated that we're not even going to be able to make sense of as of yet. Because again, the revelations, the epiphanies, the breakthrough energy that is coming with this full moon in Aquarius won't be felt until about midweek-ish. I want to go back to the head space for a second. I want to talk about the eyes. There's going to be a lot of pressure behind the eyes. Now, granted, if you're popping off with crown and third eye activations and you're having sinus congestion, obviously there's going to be pressure behind your eyes because of that. But I'm talking like burning sensation, seeing spots, if you will. Waves of electricity can be visible in the eye spectrum as well. Maybe your eyes are itchy. Maybe you get a sty in your eye. Something's going on with the eyes. Now, obviously, if you feel like this is a medical situation, by all means, go get yourself checked out. I myself suffer from auric migraines where I go temporarily blind in both eyes. And let me just say, it is a scary ass thing. But what happens before that happens is that all of these waves, this rainbow oil spill type of wave takes place in my visuals. And it doesn't feel good, but it is a true indicator to kind of sit your ass down because you're about to go blind here for a second. And not that I wish this on anyone, but let me just say that the waves that I'm kind of picking up on that we can be experiencing in our visual patterns here this week, very much representative of that experience that I personally have when an auric migraine is coming on. And so if you've never experienced one, congratulations. I'm so lucky. I feel like I'm so happy for you. And I feel like you need to feel pretty lucky about that because I absolutely hate them. But what I would also say is that if you know what I'm talking about, then at least you'll have a heads up that if this particular pattern starts happening in your visuals, you'll know why. Now, again, just kind of reiterate to you here that there is a huge amount of electricity coming into our cosmos and therefore entering into our physical form here this week. And so it is going to have a lot of different manifestations, but I think that it is going to disrupt the visual field first and foremost in some kind of way. Depending on, where the channels of your upper chakras, where they're open, where they're flowing, or where they're blocked, that's definitely going to indicate where you're going to have the more intense type of symptoms pop off in that headspace and affecting the eyeballs. But our vision for the future is changing. Thus, our eyesight needs to be changing to represent the energetic pivot point that is taking place in our auric field. And, the Aquarius energy is visionary and it is electric and it does jolt us out of the path that we thought we were going to be walking to jolt us onto the path that we need to be walking. And although we might not be gaining all of the details here this week on what that path is going to look like and how we're supposed to pursue it, there is a dramatic shift in the path. There is a dramatic shift in the information and the details that you're going to be receiving here this week, thus impacting the visual field. So we have to pay special attention for that. There's not a whole lot that you can do about it other than to lean into the breathing techniques and, of course, massage particular areas of your face and, of course, rest those eyeballs, cold compress, everything of the sort. But what I've been noticing over these last couple of weeks, especially with some man-made energetic events that are being thrown into the cosmic shit show pool going on here, is that a lot of our resources in our toolbox that once worked for us very well and were able to kind of calm and soothe these particular symptoms, it's not working as good as it used to. And that is very frightening and it's very exhausting and it kind of leaves you semi-defeated. So again, we're going to have plenty of options and opportunities here this week with a lot of these energetic manifestations popping off to see what is still working and supporting us and what is not. And we're just going to have to kind of switch things up, try new things and see how our physical body is going to be responding to, some of these energy manifestations. I want to talk about deja vu for a second because I feel like deja vu is coming in hot here this week. I feel like we're on a particular pivot point or threshold point, if you will, specifically with the Aquarius energy trying to give us a visual of where it is that we want to end up. And of course, the Cancer energy that has us reflecting back on where it is that we've come from. I just feel like the deja vu is going to be very representative of either past situations and circumstances or futuristic ones. And again, what is lacking this week is Earth energy. And that Earth energy is very important to us to kind of feel connected, not only to our physical body, but to reality. And because there is no Earth energy until basically the end of the week when the moon shifts into Taurus energy, but of course, that's going to shove us back into the physical form and back into the vessel and very aware of, the aches and pains in our physical body and the challenges and struggles that we're facing in our physical reality. But we're also intensifying to that last quarter moon phase once we dip into that Taurus energy. And that particular last quarter moon phase is a reflection back to the new moon in Leo. And it is a particular growing pain on what we have to eliminate and what we have to release and what we have to remove out of our lives in anticipation for, of course, the new moon in Virgo that will be popping off here very shortly. And of course, closing the door on the new moon lunar cycle that we're currently in and working with. Again, just want to remind you, if you are doing the shadow work and manifesting work and following along with the moon guide, we have a lot of sorting out to do here this week, where those particular energies are concerned. And so we are going to have to date back to the new moon in Leo. And of course, we have to recognize that we're at the climactic point of this particular lunar cycle with the full moon in Aquarius. And then we're going to have to wrap things up with the last quarter moon in Taurus energy. And that is the only Earth energy that we have being activated that is going to give us a sense of being in reality, being grounded, being anchored in this reality at all. So the deja vu is going to be super interesting. And I would say that, if you have deja vu experiences, to write down what is going on. What were you thinking about at the time? What were you feeling? What were you focused on? What triggered it? What activated it? How did it make you feel? All of those are going to be very important because, as I said, this week we can go from feeling like a beautiful, brilliant genius to an absolute dumbass in like a split second. And I feel like a lot of the revelations, a lot of the epiphanies that are coming in so fast, so hot that, again, they leave just as quick and leave us disoriented and leave us a little bit depleted in energies because it's an overwhelming process to receive that amount of energy and not know what to do with it. Now, this week, I think that many of us are going to be erring on the side of running hot, right? So the energy coming in is hot. The electricity is hot. It does burn. I feel like last week, many of us were kind of riding on the side of colder temperatures, even though we probably shouldn't be because it's hot as F out there. But nonetheless, the cold energy was kind of, percolating through the system, illuminating for us where it is that meridian channels were receiving new flows of energy. The hot energy is receiving insight, but it's also busting through the blockages in our meridian channels as well. Thus the achiness, thus the body aches, thus the rigidity in our joints. And so, the hot flashes probably aren't going to be so fun. We are still in Leo season. The sun rules over Leo season. The sun just reached its halfway point through this particular season. We have a lot of activations bringing in new realms of intelligence, information, and details that aren't going to make sense right away. And what I also want to talk about is that I feel like we're going to be running hot because there's a lot of anger coming up. There's a lot of frustration, borderline rage coming up. We can thank Mars in Libra energy for that, specifically with his early oppositions to both Saturn and Neptune underneath this particular kite formation that is taking place under the full moon in Aquarius. And this is going to activate blood pressure. So I want you to be very careful. Yes, heart activations can bring on that, heart pounding or a regular heartbeat. But I also want you to pay attention to blood pressure because that can be spiking, specifically when we get emotionally activated as well. And with Mars in this Libra energy, Lord Jesus knows that we are all getting activated in some very, very aggravating ways. And when we are in that mental and emotional overwhelmed state, of course, that has major repercussions on our digestive system. And I know we talk about our digestive system quite often in these ascension symptoms and these forecasts because, we have a whole bunch of nerves. And when you have your nervous system being activated and you're carrying emotional overwhelm from the past and uncertainty for the future, that affects your digestive system in a big way. But here's what I want you to pay attention to here this week where your digestive system is concerned. Yeah, you could be gassy. Yeah, you could be bloated. Yeah, there could be, nervousness and anxiety being stored in the gut. But I want you to pay attention to your eating habits because we are going to realize here this week the autopilot habits that our physical body has when we are faced with information and emotions that we don't know what to do with. And, this could highlight for you where it is that you're on autopilot and start stuffing your face with a bunch of processed junk food. And the void, that's specifically what I want you to focus on, is what void are you trying to fill? What void is alive and well within you? What void is dictating this autopilot habit and behavior for you just to be stuffing your face with whatever? And so there's a lot of emotional eating coming at us here this week, specifically when Venus and Jupiter do their thing here in Cancer energy. We're talking about nourishment. We're talking about over-exaggerative nourishment. Don't know if that's a word. If it is, stick it in the Marleyism dictionary. Or should I say if it isn't. But basically, Jupiter turns the volume all the way up on whatever it is that we're thinking and feeling. And Cancer energy wants us to nourish ourselves due to the emotions that aren't really fulfilling us. Because Venus is involved as well, and she's in Cancer energy, there is a high probability that there's some emotional wounds being exposed here this week that we're not even aware of that have created a void in our selves, past, present, and future, and that we are actively trying to eat through a bad habit to fill said void that we don't even know is alive and well and in existence. So the reason why I want you to pay attention to this is because we have the ability here this week to have a revelation, an epiphany of why we do the things that we do, not even knowing that we do them, bringing that level of awareness to our consciousness so that we can choose whether or not we're going to continue to do it. We have a high probability of being able to flip the script in some big ways here this week, but we have to go through the discomfort of realizing what it is that we're doing in order to be aware of it, in order to flip the script on it. Now, the throat, the mouth, probably going to be agitated here this week. The throat chakra, obviously, with Mercury stationed direct in Leo energy, nonetheless, a lot of the things that we've been frustrated about, confused about, biting our tongue upon while Mercury has been retrograde, and many of us have basically stirred the pot and poked the bear, so to speak, in relationship dynamics and had verbal vomit situations that made a mess of things that now we're going to have the ability to clear the air about. But there's going to be a lot of pressure to get it out. And the throat activations could come in like clearing the throat or sore throat or dry throat. Specifically, I would say on the drier side of things, holding a lot of inflammation in the mouth, in the throat. But when the moon shifts into Aries energy towards mid-ish week, we're going to have a lot of teeth and jaw activations as well. Again, all of that fire energy compounded with the Leo season that we're already in is just going to kind of torch our throat, torch our mouth, torch our gums. And so things are getting spicy in our inner realm. I already talked about how the mucosa of our physical body is changing as well. That's going to have a dramatic impact on the fire energy that we are holding in our mouth space. But once we kind of shift into the Taurus energy, when the moon moves out of Aries and into Taurus, that's when we're going to feel the pressure that we are likely feeling in that throat space transit over to our neck and our shoulders. And that is the weight of the world. And that is essentially when all of the energy from our upper chakras that are detaching us from the physical form, that is when that energy gets shoved back into the physical form, shoved back into the vessel towards the end of the week. And that in itself isn't going to feel good. And it's going to limit our ability to kind of, again, look from one side to the other. Our neck is going to get very stiff, very rigid. Our shoulders are going to be pressurized. There's probably going to be a lot of knots that come up in our shoulder space as well. And we're going to have to learn how to kind of release those particular entrapment nerves because it's a lot of pressure that is now being recalibrated into the physical form. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is, again, we talk about the dream state kind of changing all the time. But this week, I think that it's going to be a little bit more revelationary. Again, don't know if that's a word. You can add that to the book. I just feel like we are going to be gaining so much more insight through our dreamscape than anything else. I think there is a level of realism that takes over in our dreamscape that we didn't even know that we could reach. I think that there is, with this, memory recalibration thing going on here this week when we're awake, I think that a lot of those realignments, those repressed energies are going to come out front row center in our dreamscape. Now, that being said, I think we're also sweating our asses off while we're sleeping. Again, that's just part of the detox that we are currently going through. None of it feels good. None of it feels fun. But there is this interdimensional dream versus waking life, old memories versus futuristic visions. All of it is bleeding through here this week, and it's going to make no sense at all. And it's going to leave us kind of, I'm going to say, almost deflated when we wake up from particular dreams, because it's almost as if that dreamscape is more of our reality than our reality is. And I feel like we are exploring a lot more intense type of emotions in our dreamscape that we're not really willing to dip our toe into in our waking state. And as we kind of piece together some of the major revelations that are coming at us, both in our waking state and our sleep state here this week, it is going to have a major impact on the, I'm going to call it, blurred lines that we feel when we wake up and we have to kind of live in our reality. There's going to be a yearning, if you will, to want to live in the dreamscape, to have the experiences that we're having in that dreamscape that we're just not in a position to have in our waking state, in our actual reality. And so, whether you are meeting up with a lover, a spiritual partner, whether you are revisiting certain topics and themes in your dreamscape, whether or not you are kind of, facing your fears in your dreamscape or doing something exciting in your dreamscape, the defeat, the disappointment, I'm just going to call it like overall deflation when you wake up and realize that, your dreamscape is actually a lot more exciting than your reality. That's going to be a hard element to process as well. But here's the thing, that's going to illuminate for you what it is that you're lacking in your reality and should put you on a path to realize what you need to build and create in your day-to-day life, in your actual reality, in order to feel the kind of fulfillment that you felt in the dreamscape. Okay, so again, a lot of crypticness, but a lot of revelation. And I think that we are getting handed some very interesting puzzle pieces in our dreamscape here this week. So between the absolute interdimensional intelligence activations coming in with the full moon in Aquarius, then with Mercury directing, then with Saturn and Uranus coming together, then with Venus and Jupiter coming together, then kind of wrapping it up and putting a bow on it with that last quarter moon popping off in Taurus energy. I just think that we are going to have a lot more information and material to kind of percolate over here this week. And it might not make sense right away, but it is going to leave some sort of emotional imprint on you. And whether it's disappointment or excitement or anything in between, it is going to reveal to you what it is that you need to be pursuing, what it is that you want to build and create, what it is that you want to be experiencing in your physical realm. So guys, I'm taking a look at my list. I think I have crossed it all off. I'm just going to be very open-minded here this week, and I think y'all should be too. I think that we have to be kind of expecting a certain level of discomfort and defeat. I also think that we have to be open-minded to the revelation, the excitement, the passion, the desire that is going to come out of kind of realizing what it is that we don't have. So sometimes I always say that it's not enough to know what you don't want. We have to start putting just as much energy into building what it is that we do want. And specifically when it comes to manifesting, so many people aren't getting the reality in which they actually want to be living in because they haven't clearly defined what that even looks like, let alone how it feels. And it's not enough to be doing the shadow work to realize what it is that you don't want. You actually have to equally put enough energy and effort into realizing what you do want. And because we're humans and because we learn the hard way, most oftentimes than not, we realize what it is that we don't want very easily, because that's where our human mind orients to, is where we're not satisfied and where we're hella discontent. But when you find yourself realizing, well, I don't want that, or I don't want them, or I don't want to feel that, or I don't want to think about that. Okay, what is the alternative? Because building the alternative is the stepping stone path that we all need to be traveling in order to realize the actual detailed vision of what it is that we want to manifest. So we have to start somewheres. We are definitely starting with a lot of craziness and chaos here at the beginning of the week, but I think it is going to level out towards the end of the week, specifically when our energy gets shoved back into the physical body and we have to review where it is that we've been, where it is that we're currently at, and where it is that we desire to go from here. I think that's going to give us some practical information for us to be building the new goal, vision, and dream upon. So of course, I hope we all have a great week. I hope that we can lean into the discomfort and rise to the challenge of building a better alternative out of the things that we know are breaking down and falling apart and that we never want to experience again. And I hope that, if nothing else, you realize that you are not alone. You are not cray-cray. You are not alone going through this shit show. We are all going through it together. And let's hope that the revelations that are coming in with this full moon energy are going to be exactly what it is that we've been lacking, exactly what it is that we've been desiring, exactly what it is that we need in order for us to get our shit together, for us to kind of understand what is required of us to close the door on so that we can start building towards the new. I thank you so much for tuning in. I send you so much love, and we'll talk to you soon.